Our top lead this evening is coming to us from the Supreme Court of India, which has issued a dire warning to the Enforcement Directorate. It has asked the agency not to create an environment of fear. The ED, as you know, is one of India's premier investigative agencies that looks at economic offences. The opposition has often enough accused the government of weaponizing the ED against its political opponents. The Chhattisgarh government, in fact, has taken the matter to the Supreme Court, making some very serious charges. The Chhattisgarh government, in an affidavit, is alleging that the agency is threatening state excise department officials and their families and pressurizing them to implicate the Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel in an alleged 2,000 crore rupee liquor scam. The top court's stinging remark comes against the backdrop of the opposition parties alleging a witch hunt by central investigative agencies, be it the ED or the CBI. Now, in its affidavit, the Chhattisgarh government says 52 officers of the excise department have been tortured by the ED and their family members have been threatened and asked to sign blank papers. This, says the Chhattisgarh government, is being done so that they can implicate the Chief Minister of the state and destabilize the government. The Congress government in Chhattisgarh also says that most of these 52 officers now want to quit because of the pressure being mounted on them to name the Chief Minister in this alleged scam. Now, it's important to remember that there's an election in the state this year. The ED is countering the claim, of course, in the Supreme Court. They are saying that they are simply probing a scam in the state. Backing them is the BJP.
जो परिस्थितियां छत्तीसगढ़ में बनती जा रही है, करप्शन दिन ब दिन रोज नए उजागर हो रहे हैं और भ्रष्टाचार ऐसा जो प्रमाणित हो चुका है। ईडी ने जिसको प्रूफ कर दिया 2000 करोड़ रुपया के शराब में और रिकवरी निकलना शुरू हो गया, लोगों की संपत्ति जब्त होने शुरू हो गई और ये वही लोग हैं जो सिंडिकेट चलाते हैं। शराब माफिया का एक सिंडिकेट अवैध रूप से छत्तीसगढ़ में 30% शराब को खुलेआम, हिंदुस्तान में कोई ऐसी सरकार नहीं होगी जो शराब खुद अवैध धंधा करे। न्यायालय में प्रस्तुत हो चुका है, इससे बड़ा प्रमाण मिलने की जरूरत नहीं है।
Now, you've heard from the BJP, now hear from the Congress government in Chhattisgarh. Health Minister T.S. Singh Deo is joining me on the broadcast. Mr. Deo, thank you very much for your time. Your answer to what the ED is saying or what Raman Singh is saying, the ED is saying, why are you getting perturbed? We are simply probing a scam.
Good evening, Shreya ji, and good evening to all the viewers. For one, I just heard what Mr. Raman Singh ji is saying. He says that he has not seen a government dealing with the liquor trade. He forgot that he was himself the chief minister when this policy was laid out, and the government started the distribution of liquor. So I think, short memory, he should remember that. This government has made no new policy as far as the liquor trade is concerned. That apart, whereas the ED is concerned, I really don't know what is happening inside. And people are called for questioning. But very frequently we are hearing that there is intimidation. People, some of them are getting third degree, others are being told, those who are also there in that building at that point in time, see what is happening to those people, you better say this or you better say whatever is the correct thing, otherwise similar thing may happen to you. This is what we have been hearing outside, from outside. So this consistently has been there, and it is in line with what the Supreme Court has sort of ruled, that intimidation must not be there. Atmosphere of fear, like you read out, must not be there.
So you're actually saying on record that there has not just been intimidation, there has been third degree treatment that has been given to some excise officials who are being questioned by the Enforcement Directorate. The charge also being made in the Chhattisgarh affidavit is that this is an attempt to destabilize the government ahead of elections, that this is deliberate targeting of non-BJP states. Why do you say that, sir?
It is certainly so. It is certainly so because it doesn't seem to be happening everywhere in the country. These ED actions or IT actions or CBI actions seem to be targeted against the non-BJP governments, whether it is in Bengal or whether it is in Jharkhand or whether it is in Chhattisgarh or elsewhere in the country. It seems to be targeted. So that takes away from the independence or the objectivity of an organization, on national level organization, put in place to prevent money laundering or other such illegal activities, corrupt activities. So you take away, by taking action in this sort of a manner, the objectivity of the whole procedure. So that is what is unfortunate. You want to take action equally throughout the country. Who will object? We as citizens of India would support it. Please go ahead. You must bring the corrupt to book, bring them to public notice and take action against them. Nobody would ever oppose such a thing. But when you target it against certain people and governments, then the whole exercise becomes questionable.
You've heard from the Congress government in Chhattisgarh. Let's hear from a senior advocate as well. Dushyant Dave is a senior advocate. He's also the former president of the Supreme Court Bar Association. Mr. Dave, first things first, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror Now. Before we go to the Supreme Court and what the Supreme Court has cautioned the ED with, could you just help me understand how serious the charges of the Chhattisgarh government are? These are charges, Mr. Dave, that have been made on an affidavit. And these are charges where the Chhattisgarh government is accusing the Enforcement Directorate of trying to threaten, intimidate and torture 52 excise department officials and their families, to name the chief minister. Could you help us understand just how serious these charges are?
Particularly aware of that affidavit. But once it is made, once the statements are made on an affidavit, that affidavit is on oath, then I think you have to presume that the affidavit is correct, and therefore the allegations are very, very serious. But I can definitely say one thing, that Enforcement Directorate is being used as a tool by the Bharatiya Janata Party and particularly Mr. Amit Shah to target not just the opposition governments, the opposition leaders, but now it has become a law unto itself, and it is targeting large number of industrialists across the country. In fact, there is an extortion racket which is going on, as I believe, because a lot of my industrialist friends have been telling me that the ED officials just land up and, without any cause. I have personally appeared in one case recently where ED had no business to, even start the investigation. There was no crime money involved, and the enforcement department has gone ahead and attached, assets worth 2,000 crores of rupees in respect of a complaint which involves 50 shares worth 500 rupees. So I think there is serious abuse by the Enforcement Directorate officials. It is tarnishing the image of the Honorable Prime Minister. It is tarnishing the image of Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, who is the Finance Minister under whom ED is supposed to work. And I'm pained that none of these people are really willing to understand what is happening and take corrective measures. You have to understand that the Enforcement Director, Mr. Sharma's tenure has been extended by this government again and again by even amending the law. That really shows that Mr. Sharma is a special, boy of the government, and he is therefore being used by the Bharatiya Janata Party, particularly, Mr. Amit Shah, to really target people, who are innocent. I don't think that corruption is any monopoly of opposition parties alone. Corruption is across the board. Why is it that EDA is not going against a single BJP leader in any of the BJP states which are ruled by BJP? So I think this kind of, targeting is harming the image of this kind of, agency, and it is also sending terribly wrong message across the country. Undoubtedly, Supreme Court is right. I can definitely say that across the country, there is a fear factor today. Everybody respects CBI because CBI does not indulge in this kind of, threats. CBI does not indulge in this kind of witch hunting, but the Enforcement Directorate has become a law unto itself. And this must be corrected by Prime Minister. Sooner he does it, I think he will earn a goodwill. Otherwise, the image of the government is seriously suffering a setback because of acts of individuals in the Enforcement Department headed by Mr. Sharma.
Mr. Dave, you're making a very serious allegation and charge against the Enforcement Directorate here. You're saying that they have become a law unto themselves and they have become extortionists as well. If the ED has been weaponized against political opponents, then there is a certain weaponization against businessmen and industrialists as well, just to extort money. Serious charges you're making there, but let me give you the argument that the Enforcement Directorate gives. The Enforcement Directorate, the ED tells us that, look, you guys keep harping on the fact that we only raid and arrest opposition leaders. Fact is, only 3% of our cases are against politicians. So why do you go on and on and on to say that the ED is only interested in targeting opposition leaders who are especially in non-BJP ruled states?
Out of 3%, how many are against BJP leaders? That's the question. So, I mean, I know as a matter of fact, everybody knows in the country, you go to any BJP ruled state.
95% are from the opposition. Mr. Dave, since you asked me that question, 95% are from the opposition.
Exactly.
This is what data tells us.
Karnataka recently, BJP lost. Why? Because of serious allegations of corruption. Did ED act against any one of them? I know as a matter of fact, and these are not some things which I can discuss on television, but there are complaints against BJP leaders, very serious complaints in Gujarat, in Maharashtra, in many other states, including at center. So why is it that the ED is singularly silent about these aspects and not, making any inquiries against them? Forget arresting. Inquiries are not taking place. And, my problem is, Shreya, the real problem is that the judiciary has singularly failed to protect the citizens in last few years. If the atmosphere of fear has gripped the country, it has also gripped the judiciary. And therefore, people who deserve to be released on bail. Take, for example, Satyendra Jain. I don't know the facts of his case, but I definitely can say one thing, that he has to be released straight away. You cannot keep people in jail for months on because of allegations of money laundering. Money laundering law was really to prevent drug money, to prevent arms money, to prevent international terrorism. It was not for black money. So the whole law is being, misused, and thanks only to the Supreme Court. Because it was the Supreme Court bench headed by Justice Khanvilkar and recently retired Justice Maheshwari and one other learned judge who, really weaponized the ED. They have completely misinterpreted the law of prevention of money laundering and taken away from citizens their rights, constitutional rights, completely. And as a result of that, the ED, without even serving a copy of the FIR or ECIR as they call, is arresting people, is harassing people, raiding people, seizing their properties, attaching their properties. This is not democracy. This is not rule of law. And I blame judiciary for the state of affairs that's taking place today in the country.
Mr. Dushyant Dave, always good to get your view. Thank you very much for joining us here on Mirror Now. It was good to hear you. Thank you so much. Let me introduce my other guest to you. We have Yashwardhan Azad, who's a former IPS officer. We have Namit Saxena, who is an advocate of the Supreme Court. Namit Saxena, then taking from what Mr. Dave is saying, the Supreme Court can't just get away by saying that don't create an atmosphere of fear. The Supreme Court cannot just get away by saying even a bona fide case becomes suspect when you, that is the ED, behave like this. Don't create an atmosphere of fear. Taking from Mr. Dave's, analysis of the situation, where he's holding the judiciary equally responsible of taking away rights of citizens, that the judiciary will simply have to do more.
Yes, see, I agree with what Ms. Dave said. The judiciary has to take it forward. See, what we'll have to understand is this is a preventive legislation. It's PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. It's not RMLA, Recovery of Money Laundering Act. So this legislation is supposed to be in form of preventive legislation that you stop money laundering, which is in 3 process of layering, integration, etc. So this was supposed to that you control and curb that money laundering does not happen. What has happened now is we can draw inference from there was this famous novel by George Orwell by the name Animal Farm. So Animal Farm was taken over by animals from that farm which was named as Manor Farm. It was taken over by pigs, and those pigs had 9 dogs. So whenever anybody raised any voice against the pigs who were the rulers then, they used to release, these 9 dogs. What has happened now is that the ruling establishment is actually using, ED as a tool of harassment qua, opposition in a manner. What has happened in this matter is this, and this is basics of pleadings. When there is something, filed in the highest court of the country on an affidavit, that is extremely serious. So they have filed on an affidavit, and the state government is coming forward. There's an elected government. Elected government is coming forward and saying that there is a particular central government's investigating agency which is supposed to investigate only crimes of money laundering. They are coming forward and harassing and physically abusing our citizens, the residents of our states, who also happen to be government employees and their family members. And they are saying that in case you don't name a certain individual who is the sitting chief minister right now, we are going to go after you. And please sign these blank, documents, etc. Now, this allegation is extremely serious. In case, the judiciary, the Supreme Court does not take a very strong note of it, I'm very sure, I'm very clear in my mind, the judiciary will fail in its duty. The judiciary cannot be immune to ground realities of what is happening on the ground in particular states when there is election due in that particular state. So the judiciary has to take it forward, and judiciary is duty bound rather. It's a constitutional duty of the highest court of the country to take it forward from there.
Is the case that is currently in court going to result in that? We'll just have to wait and watch. But Yashovardhan Azad, are our agencies digging their own grave? Agencies like the Enforcement Directorate, agencies like the CBI, agencies like the NCB, and we've discussed the NCB yesterday here on this show. These are agencies that are arms of the government. These are agencies that are supposed to keep the nation honest. Barely a few minutes ago, you have Mr. Dushyant Dave, one of India's senior most lawyers, saying that the ED have become extortionists. Forget politicians. They simply go ahead, target businessmen and industrialists to do nothing but to extort money from them. Are our agencies digging their own grave, where they are saying, "Chodo, bhaad mein jaye credibility. Credibility se kya milega? Let's simply do what the government wants us to do, and in the process, let's simply make some money"?
Yes, Shreya, I think what Mr. Dushyant Dave said is really shocking and is horrifying, because this is happening outside the political world too, and is happening to the industrialists. Now, there are 2 parts to your question, which I'll deal separately very, very briefly. Number 1 is the ED per se, and the ED's operations only against the opposition parties. There is no denial of the fact that they are going only for the against the ED parties, which I would not say is wrong. Almost 80% of the cases when you see cash tumbling out of various almirahs and things like that, it's absolutely okay. But yes, there are other people within their own system, within their own regimes in the various state governments, they are not taking action against, and therefore the impartiality of the ED must be questioned. Number 2, ED is a draconian, PMLA is a draconian act, whether in terms of bail, whether in terms of arrest, attachment of properties, and the Supreme Court gave a go-ahead to it in 2022, as Dushyant Dave said. But number 3, which you're talking about, what is happening in ED today, that is a wider problem, which no expert will tell you. The issue is that excise is a very healthy department, healthy in apostrophe commas, healthy like transport, like PWD, like irrigation. So every excise policy or every excise liquor contract is under the scanner, and people generally know who are the favorites and who are the right people. Now, what happens is ED, given this extraordinary powers, preys upon some of these people. And then, because of the draconian system that you have, and then tells them to bear open the facts. Now, the money won't tumble out, the actual hard evidence won't come out, but a statement would come out about the truth. And using that, it ensnares the other people who are from the political executive. Now, if you adopt this methodology, I don't think any state will be spared. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So this is a serious problem within our system. Take any liquor contract, take any excise policy, and it's kind of brimming with all kinds of the subterranean refuse, which sort of bubbles up to the surface. Now, yes, again, it is one-sided. It's against the opposition parties. So you can say that, yes, it should be balanced. It should be also against their own parties where it's happening. That it's not happening,
absolutely,
it's wrong. But where it's happening, to say it is completely wrong,
Azad,
that is also not true. But harassment of people,
Mr.
harassment
Azad, again,
of officers.
I'm not saying that all the 5,906 cases that the ED has been investigating since 2014, are wrong. That the people who are being accused are clean. That is not what I'm saying. The simple point I'm making is this, that since 2014 there has been a fourfold jump in ED cases against politicians, and 95% of them have been from the opposition. Now look at, for example, just see the pictures that came to us from Karnataka. Everyone remembers this. This is which is why I'll speak about this one particular instance. We had an MLA, Mr. Virupaksha. His son caught red-handed accepting a bribe. After that, the Lokayukta conducts raids. The Lokayukta conducts raids, and I don't know how many crore rupees, I think 8 crore or something, is found in cash from the MLA and from his son. All of this is on record. This is not disputed, because one part of the story has happened red-handed. There are pictures. There is a video to tell us that this man, Virupaksha's son, has been caught red-handed taking bribes. So there is no dispute about that. Okay? Did we see the ED swoop on Mr. Virupaksha or his son? Yes, he was denied a ticket, but the BJP didn't even sack him. Yeah. And by the end of it, we do not have any ED action against the ex-BJP MLA, which is where, if the opposition says that the ED and the CBI are being weaponized against us, we have, we have factual proof, we have data to prove it, and we have anecdotal incidents that keep happening in this country to prove it as well.
Shreya, I'm very happy you said that, because realize that happily the police is also weaponized in favor of by the ruling government. So this gentleman will now be taken care of by the present Congress government. The system in India is CBI is called the Central Bureau of Investigation against the opposition. So the state agencies will now operate against the opposition, and all these cases will come out of the closet now.
Which is unfortunate, which is not how corruption needs to be dealt in this country. You cannot make it political. You cannot act against someone who's in the opposition and not act against someone who's in power. Namit, I can give you 10 seconds to respond, but what I'll say is that the ED, the CBI, the NCB are, they are important arms to govern this country. They are important arms. What is their job? Their job is to keep this country honest. Yes. And if questions are being raised about their honesty, and if they are walking an extra mile to prove all the charges against them, it's a very unfortunate state of affairs. And the judiciary simply, Namit, then cannot get away by just saying, "Dhyan rakho," don't create an atmosphere of fear. You have to do more than that.
The judiciary, as the monitor of the class, issues a warning first. What they've done today is, sort of a warning that please don't do this. In case they do it further, then I'm pretty sure that that they'll take action. But where they have failed is that in Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary, the judgment which Mr. Dushyant Dave was talking about, they have given abundant powers to ED. Now they have called on review of that particular judgment, the three-judge bench judgment. So they have to list it, hear it, and decide it as soon as possible so that we get rid of this. But what Mr. Azad was pointing out, I'll just take 10 seconds on it, of what actually political witch hunt, to what extent can it happen? See, we have the case of Mr. Azam Khan also, where, after the ruling establishment in the state changed, there were 108 cases of buffalo, stealing of buffalo, 2,000 rupees loot, etc. 108 cases, lodged against him. In Rampur, in the MP MLA court, the only cases which run again, are against, this particular individual and, his allies. So, when we look at, when we look at the issue from this angle, when political witch hunt actually happens, when, when there is a change in the ruling establishment, it is furthermore serious that, that we look at it from the perspective of, how defense lawyers look at it. So this is something which, deserves a better relook at the complete situation as to what are we going to do in our future. And is the judiciary going to completely sit silent on it? Judiciary can't be, I repeat it again, judiciary can't be immune to ground realities. Judiciary has to step in and tell them, you can't do it. You have to stop somewhere. There is a Lakshman Rekha. You can't, just because the ruling establishments change.
But the judiciary, but the judiciary is the one that has empowered the Enforcement Directorate and taken away rights of the citizens.
Exactly.
As far as the PMLA is concerned, that is what has happened, and therefore the judiciary too needs to look at the demon, the Frankenstein it has created. We leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much, Yashovardhan Azad. Thank you very much, Namit, for joining us. I'm taking a quick break on the show. My next story is coming from the Supreme Court as well. It seems the Supreme Court is the one that is giving us major headlines this evening. That's coming up next. Do stay with us.